Okay, so in a previous video, I covered how I did this effect. The next thing I want to do is get a visa-free kind of effect where you can enter the country that your passport belongs to and it'll tell you if you're visa-free to visit another nation. There's something similar on Nomad List, but it's only available to paid customers, so I've never actually seen it before or interacted with it, but I'm pretty sure we can make it up. So, first thing I'm going to do is make a page called Visa Rec for visa requirements, and we want to have two drop downs so you can find out if country A is visa free or visa required for country B. So this will be drop down passport held, so your passport, and then we'll also have a drop down for, what should we call it, destination. This is the country you want to visit. Cool. Now to do this, I'm using an API, not that API, this API, and this is Passport Visa API. It's completely free and it has no authentication, which is part of the reason why I chose it, because I wanted to do something without authentication, so can show everyone like the simplest way to connect to an API that exists. So retrieves data from the passport index, which is a website you might have seen, and this is just a rank of passports and where they can access. And I guess the first thing I want to show is that APIs really are not complicated at all. Okay. It's just an endpoint that exists that you can type into your URL as normal and it will return some data. So say we're interested in Australia. All we did is type AU into the endpoint, which is what it told us to do. It said here, passport country, and I've already read a little bit about this, but it wants the passport country to be entered in as the 2-digit code. So like this, like Hong Kong, Great Britain, or Australia. This will return a list of all of the passports, all of the countries Australia has visa free. So visa free, and then an object with the key of data, and then these are all the visa free countries, and at some stage this object will closes here, and it's a length of 102, and then there's the VOA, which is visa on arrival, pretty sure, yeah, visa on arrival, and then there's the VR countries, and then of course there's some COVID banned countries at the moment, and then there's no emissions. So that's how you do that. If you want to, so Australia to PH Philippines is visa free, that's the status, but Australia to, I think CH is, nah, it's probably like Chile or something. See, visa required to go to Russia, or I don't know what North Korea is, but yeah, so that's the API we're using. So here for our drop down passport held, we're gonna just quickly do some choices. So we'll do Australia, Philippines, Russia, Hong Kong, Great Britain, and the passports we're visiting. We'll do cool. And then what we need to do is we need to go to the installed plugins and get the API connector, which is a plugin by Bubble that lets us do API requests. And we're going to add another API. We're going to call it Visa Requirements. There is no authentication. It's an open endpoint, which we know because when we did this, we could access it. We didn't have to give it the equivalent of a username and password. And here's our actual call. So we're gonna call it, I guess visa status is a good name. And it's a GET request to this endpoint. You see here it says brackets for parameters, so anytime you want to enter some custom data, so you need to get this country code from Bubble dynamically, and that's actually going to come from our drop-down groups. So we don't want just one nation, we want, can one nation visit another nation, and what is the status of that? So we're going to do like this. I think you can do spaces, might need like that. So we have passport held and we have destination, and it's very important, not sure why, but you have to click this. You have to make it not private if you want to be able to send this information in dynamically from the client, from Bubble. So when you initialize this call, you need to initialize it, you need to give it some data. That data doesn't necessarily need to be the data that you use when you are using your app. You just need to give it something so Bubble can run it, so it can get the types, so it knows what it is. So let's just put Hong Kong for passport held, destination Great Britain, initialize it, and then it's going to get all the return values, so that's why we needed to put something in there so it could get these return values. Okay, now that we've done that, we can print it to the screen. So let's do this. Get the data from the API, visa status, insert dynamic data, and this is the drop-down passport held value, and this is the drop-down destinations value. And we don't just need to do the call, but we also need to output something. So the status is whether or not visa is required. So by default, it runs with the values we gave it, so we can go back and delete those values. Let's do something that's not visa free. Visa required, and Russia to PH should be visa free, and PH to Russia should be e-visa. Okay. Now I guess just want to tidy it up the littlest bit. So drop down passport. So this would say like AU passport holders are visa free to whatever goes here. AU passport holders are visa free to PH. Hong Kong passport holders are visa free to PH. The only thing is that Hong Kong, HK, who's going to know that HK equals Hong Kong? Most people, but that's probably a bad example for that question. There are some of these that really aren't going to be obvious. So what we should do is we should use another API that converts HK into the more common name. So for that, we have this API, which is another free API, which also doesn't require authentication, which lets you put in the code. There's the CCA2 code, that's what we're using, the 2-digit one, and get out the country name. But if you think about it, that doesn't really make sense, because we'd be putting in, if we had all of these codes and we wanted to populate this as a list of country names, we'd have to run the API for every single one of these and output a name, which would be super duper slow. So it'd be better if we had all of the country common names stored here, and then we fed the country common name into this API, and what we got out was this code, which we could then feed into the next API to get the visa status. Probably not the most performant way to do it, but it's definitely better than doing it the other way. So what we should do is we should populate this repeating group, this drop down with all of the countries that exist on Earth. So if ever you need to do something like that, here's a good way. So I want them all to be options. The thing is, the only way to do options is to enter them one at a time. So that'd take forever. So rather than go to all that trouble, why don't I just do something like this? Come on. Play nice. Alright. And then I'll just delete column, delete column, delete column as CSV. Save that. Then we can go to bubble and go to our option set, which is what we want, and we can call this countries. We can create it, and you might have seen this thing lurking down the bottom. This is a plugin. It's called Bubble Option Set Helper, and I use it all the time. It's wonderful. It's completely free. Okay, so the reason why we've done that is so we can get a dynamic choice, type of choice, countries, choice select, all countries, display, do the same for both of them. Alright, so now this isn't going to work. First of all, because we need to output the display. It's not working. And here, so now we're getting a country name. We're getting Afghanistan, we're getting New Zealand. And it expects a country symbol, so we need to convert our name into a symbol. So to do that, we're going to use this API. And we can test that this API does what we want it to. Same way we did before, we can Australia, and then we can look in there, and somewhere in there we'll find the code that we're gonna feed to the other API. There it is, CCA2, it's AU. Oops. So then we're gonna take this CCA2 AU and we're gonna feed it to this other API, and that's gonna give us this without the inconvenience of asking the user to enter the code every time. So to do that, no, getting ahead of myself. We haven't connected the other API yet. So we need to API name is going to be get country info. Can be the same. That needs to go there. Remember that goes there. Make this not private. Name, we have to run it. Got everything back that we expected. This here. So remember what we're doing here is we're getting the code for the country that's in the passport holders drop down. It's just a lot to keep in my head all at once. Okay, so this returns an array. So we're going to get the first item out of the array. And the reason why we can do that is because we're searching for a country and there's only one country that has the name. So unless something's gone wrong, the array should only be one thing long and the first item should be what we're looking for. So we're going to get the first item and we're going to get its CCA2 out of there. And that's going to be the passport held. And then we're going to do the same thing for here at the API get country info. And this is going to be the play nice. Sorry, brain pause. Destination value. Drop down destination values display. First item CCA2. Right? Albanian passport holders a pre-visa on arrival to Angola, so it seems like it's working. So, Brazil passport holders are pre-visa on arrival to Angola. Pre-visa, e-visa to Azerbaijan. Brazil passport holders a visa required to Turkmenistan. So the only thing that's a bit rubbish now is that you have to scroll through this entire list to find the thing that you're looking for. So what if we had a input that was searchable? Let's give it a go.